Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing great. I would like to welcome you all to today's United Kingdom webinar on introducing OKRs and making them work. On behalf of Agile People Ops, me, Mariana Di Rosario, your host, would like to thank you all for joining us today. I would now like to introduce our speaker for today, Kate Madison Greenwell. She is the CEO of People Efficient. Having been in HR for 24 plus years, Kate founded People Efficient a couple of years ago. She's an expert in the people experience, organizational development, digital transformation, and change management fields, in particular with rapidly growing businesses. Having worked with clients such as Commonwealth Games, BMW, Channel 4, and Lee Stafford, she's renowned for using her specialist knowledge of Agile HR to help companies reimagine how HR, business, and leadership gets done. Kate is also a co-host of the popular podcast HR Director's Cut, encouraging HR leaders to join the HR revolution and transition to the next phase of modern HR. Welcome, Kate. The stage is all yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, hello, welcome everybody. I hope that you're all here to learn a bit more about OKRs and making them work. If you're not, I'm afraid you're in for a shock because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll just wait another minute just for any latecomers that come in. So do pop in the chat. Let me know your name and where you are, where you're dialing in from. Always interesting, and I do like to just leave a little minute for latecomers to join us. So do pop in and say hello and tell me where you're joining us from, because I'm led to believe that we've got people from all over joining us today. And we also just want to make sure that the chat works, because we're going to be using that as we go through today. So pop in the chat, let me know where you are in the world. Here we go. Hello. Hi, Rhiannon. You're in the UK, the East Midlands. Amazing. I spent a lot of my childhood in Northamptonshire, which is just about in the East Midlands. So welcome. Is there anybody else that's going to pop in the chat? At least I know the chat works. So thank you very much, Rhiannon. Danny, you're in Stoke-on-Trent. Nice. It's nice there. I'm guessing you've probably got a bit of a rainy and grey atmosphere, just like I have in Leeds, I'm sure. Anybody else going to pop on? Well, at least we've tested the chat and we know that it's working. So thanks. So do make sure that you have your chat enabled, because we are going to be using that in a moment. Here it comes. So we've got Nadia from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'll be cross with you if you tell me that it's sunshine there, because we've got a really dreary and grey day in the UK. Got Mohammed from Dubai, probably going to have some sunshiny weather there. Amsterdam, hello, that's a name I recognise. South Africa, very sunny, about 31 Celsius. Nadia, you need to leave immediately. I don't want to hear about sunshine. Only joking. Right, let's crack on. So we're going to be talking about introducing OKRs and making them work. So let's crack on today. So what are we going to be learning today? So our aims for today are all about why we need OKRs, how to get started with them, influencing leaders, the structure of OKRs as well, and the benefits to the business, and also exploring a little bit about how we can make OKRs work through taking a top-down approach, but also a bottom-up, or as I put there, a bottoms-up. I thought that was funny, approach as well, so that you're being really inclusive and you're really making sure that you're making the most of all of the information and experience of the whole team. We'll skip over the next slide because I've already had a great introduction. So let's get started with OKRs. What do they even mean? What are they all about? So the first thing we're going to do is a chatterfall. So for those of you that haven't done that, what a chatterfall is that you answer the question or give a comment, you type that up into the chat, but you don't press send until I say go. And what happens is we have a bit of a chatterful where we get everybody's comments at the same time. So I would love to start with a bit of exploration around your understanding and also your experience in what can happen if a business doesn't set and declare goals or targets or objectives or whatever business language you want to use. So have a little think about that. Think about what can happen if a business doesn't set and declare goals. Type what you think in the chat, but don't press send until I say go. It makes me feel very powerful when this happens. I feel like I have all of your comments in my grasp, and it'll only get released once I say go. So I love doing a chatterful. So what can happen if a business doesn't set and declare goals? So we'll give it another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll see what your thoughts are. I have to remember to stop talking to give people a chance to have a think about it. Okay, so I'm going to say go. Here we go. Excellent. And hello to Sarif and Turva as well from Nigeria and from Turkey. Oh, and Mutinta as well from Zambia. Welcome. Okay, so what have we got here? So yeah, absolutely. Lack of alignment and clarity on expectations. Very succinctly put. The business doesn't have a clear roadmap of where they want to go. This can also be confusing for the employees as they won't know what the business wants to achieve and what their role in it will be. People work in different directions and a waste of effort. Brilliant, Rhiannon. We're going to be looking at that in a moment. People interpret the direction based on their own views, values, and interpretations, resulting in tribal silos and differing contributions, yet all thinking they're doing the right thing. Danny, you're speaking my language. I'll probably be going to be calling on you in a little while because we're going to be talking about that as well. So Nadia, would you feel comfortable to take yourself off mute and maybe just expand a little bit on on your comment that you've made there, if you'd feel comfortable?
I don't know if you guys are able to hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. And I'm also sitting in a coffee shop, so it might be a bit loud.
It's fine. You're perfect. We can hear you brilliantly. I'd love to know a little bit more about, perhaps if you experienced that kind of confusion.
Yes, I have. I think for me, it's, we go through every year and we say we want to set goals, we want to work towards something. And then, by the end of November, that's what I'm experiencing now. We're running around trying to achieve something.
Yeah.
Not knowing what we actually wanted to achieve. It's like saying that you want to go to the gym or you want to run a 10K, but you don't have a plan on how you're going to get there, what you want to do.
I love that analogy. And I do go to the gym, and quite often I just walk around thinking what am I going to do today? So yeah, I could probably use OKRs for my own workout maybe. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean that's great. And I know I've certainly experienced that as well, and which I'm going to reflect on in a minute. So thank you. Well done for achieving your first chatterful. So what is it, what is it about OKRs? Why do we need them? And as we've talked about in the chatterful there, in today's VUCA world, so we have a volatile and uncertain and chaotic and ambiguous world. Hopefully I'm not alone in feeling that. It's even more important than ever to ensure clarity and effective communication for businesses to achieve their goals. That's what they're in it for, right? They want to achieve the goals, they want to make the money, they want to spread the message, spread the mission, whatever it is that they're wanting to do. They need to set those goals in order to be able to do that. So I thought I'd share with you a bit of a story, and I've themed it a Halloween theme because that's coming up next week, and I do like to bring a bit of colour to my sessions. So I worked with a company that shall remain nameless, who had a mission that was to be the #1 widget maker of all time. They weren't really making widgets, but that's what I'm going to do to protect their identity. And that was their mission, and that was how ambiguous that mission was. So if you think about all the different functions that are in a company, you know, a sort of typical company, you have sales, you have ops, HR, finance, you've got the leadership team. They, as I think, was it Danny that was saying, yeah, Danny, there were different interpretations of what that actually meant. So the board had set that mission to be the #1 widget maker of all time. They'd set the budget without even speaking to anybody. They didn't seek advice, and they really weren't aware of how close or far away they were from that mission. So they didn't really understand what needed to happen in order to achieve that. And as Danny was saying, it meant different things to different people. So to be the #1 widget maker of all time, did that mean the most profitable? Did it mean the most turnover? Did it mean the largest headcount? You know, there really wasn't that sort of clarification there. So as you can probably imagine, you know, chaos ensued. There was a lot of chaotic thinking, a little bit like Nadia was saying earlier. There just wasn't that alignment, and there was a lot of working in silos and working against each other. And fundamentally, there was a lack of accountability. And there were, I've put a few sort of the thoughts of what was happening within that particular business. So sales had interpreted it that they needed to, you know, bring in a lot more revenue, and they increased the bonus amount because they felt that that would be really attractive to attract talent, which it did. But they also increased, they raised the achievement threshold as well. So it made the bonus, although it was bigger, it also made it unachievable. So they then started to lose their high-performing sales employees due to competitive wages elsewhere, or should I say, a lack of their own competitive wages. And they weren't in control of being able to do anything about the wages because finance had instigated a pay freeze. And the reason that finance had done that was because they were aware that the business was going to be making acquisitions. So they needed to make a healthy balance sheet, but they hadn't shared that information with anyone else. Then we had in ops, they needed investment in machinery in order to keep up with all of the orders, because the machines kept breaking down. There was then high absence because they were relying on people for overtime. HR recognized that, so they were focusing on well-being to try and bring that absence down, and they were focusing on talent attraction all the time because of the huge turn in sales. But whilst they wanted to focus on well-being, they weren't able to get a budget for it because finance had instigated that freeze. So as you can probably imagine, there was a lot of blame, there was a lot of siloed thinking, there was a real lack of accountability. The leadership team, you know, weren't taking accountability either. They blamed the CEO for the decision around the mission. Yeah, it was really quite chaotic, and we lost a lot of people at that time. And it took a couple of years actually to undo that and actually have a much clearer and focused mission. So that's one of the reasons why I really like the kind of transparency and the joined up thinking of OKRs. But where do we start? What do we need to do in order to start with a model of OKRs? Well, one of the best ways to start is to understand the benefits of moving to an OKR solution. And if I hadn't said before, OKR stands for objectives and key results. I should have said that at the beginning. You know, one of the benefits is having that focus and alignment. So OKRs can help to focus employees and teams on the most critical tasks and objectives. They can keep asking themselves, is this going to get us closer to our objective? And that's really important in a fast-paced and constantly changing environment, because it can be really easy to get sidetracked. So by setting clear and measurable goals, OKRs can help us to ensure that everyone is working towards the same thing. And at People Efficient, the company that I work with, we've found introducing OKRs to a business to be one of the most powerful actions to help them to be successful. Another benefit is communication and collaboration. So OKRs really promote communication and collaboration across all of the teams. So when everybody knows what the goals are and knows what everybody's goals are, it's really easy to work together to achieve them. And that's especially important in today's interconnected world, where businesses need to be able to quickly adapt to change. So it's great to have that transparency in terms of your communication and collaboration, because you can understand much better why teams are perhaps behaving in a way that they are. It's also a great way of having an autonomy and an accountability culture, which is something that I think is really important for teams to be successful. So by setting those clear goals and then tracking progress and reflecting on that progress, it's easy to see how targets are being met and where they're perhaps being where it's a struggle to meet them. And that helps to ensure that all of the teams are contributing to the success, and the business can make decisions based on that too. Another great thing about OKRs is that motivation. So being able to motivate employees to achieve as much as they can is a great thing for businesses. And it's also a great way of being able to see, you know, what is achievable and what isn't. So when employees know that their work is aligned with the company's goals, they're much more likely to be engaged and motivated. And that can lead to increased productivity and innovation. I've said before about transparency. It's one of my values, because I really feel like it helps with culture pieces or culture transformation. But OKRs make it clear what the company is trying to achieve, which can really help to increase transparency and then trust, which is so vital, especially if you have distributed teams or hybrid teams. Having that clear sense of transparency can really help with motivation and with achievement too. Decision making, having OKRs can really help with better decision making, because it can help businesses to make better decisions by providing a framework for evaluating different options and for setting priorities. And again, it kind of links back to that overall mission. And then the last benefit, although I'm sure there are more out there, is continuous improvement. So it can really help businesses to continuously improve by providing a way to track progress and identify areas of improvement, because you've got that transparency and you've got that communication and collaboration as well. So it's a really powerful tool for boosting business growth by helping to focus, align. I think somebody said about alignment earlier, which was, is it Jehan or Jahan? I forget now. Was saying about alignment and clarity on expectations as well. So it can help businesses to achieve their goals faster and more effectively. So it's great to understand what benefits moving to an OKR solution can bring. So the next thing is getting that leadership on board. So getting buy-in for OKRs is really important, because you can't just implement OKRs without getting the support of your leadership and their teams. So the leadership needs to understand why OKRs are important and how they will benefit the organisation. So one way of doing that might be to get them to recognise what's holding them back right now. And that could be that lack of clarity and lack of understanding and lack of communication that Nadia was talking about earlier, and I certainly experienced. So they need to understand the benefits of the organisation and also be willing to invest the time and resources to make OKRs a success. So there needs to be, some joined up thinking that we need to move to a different solution, and OKRs, could be one of those. So once you have the support of your leadership, you can start to get the buy-in from your team. So that doesn't mean that you need to get everybody involved in the initial OKR rollout. It could be started by just getting the support of a few key colleagues who can help you to set the rules and practices for OKR implementation. For those of you that are fans of agile practices, as I am, start small, start with a pilot, test, experiment, see what happens. Think of a project perhaps or a team that could collaborate on something, and start to use OKRs as your method and solution, and see how it lands, see how people work with that, see what works and what doesn't. And then that's something else that you can present to the leadership team to say that we've already tried this, and these are the lessons we've learned, in order to roll that out to the wider team. So getting that buy-in early from your leadership and teams will help to ensure that the OKRs are successful, because if you have somebody that is actively not supportive, then it's going to be difficult to push that through. So it can be, because of the transparency of it, it can be a worry for leadership. So I would often say, go slowly with it, and really get them to see the benefits. We're going to be sharing this presentation afterwards. So I've just put a few bits on there as well, so that it will remind you of what we've talked about. But definitely be patient and persistent as well. So the next thing is to define the why. And you can do that by understanding what the current state of play is. So as Nadia was talking about earlier, is there confusion? Is there chaos? Are decisions taking a long time to be made or not being made at all? Is there high turnover? Is there failed targets? Are you seeing siloed working? Has that led to duplication? Has it led to, additional costs? Are there cultural issues? All of those things, can lead you to need to have, a structure that something like an OKR solution can bring. So really understand why it is that you're wanting to suggest moving to OKRs as well. The other thing that an OKR is great in is that when we're going to talk about that top down and bottom up approach, it means that you're moving away from that hippo scenario. I don't know whether you're familiar with that term. I love the term. It's about the highest paid person's opinion being the one that reigns. And with OKRs and the transparency that brings, it can really help to balance that. So you've got the pragmatism of the people that are on the ground together with the experience that leadership teams bring as well. So really start to define the why. And then the other thing that's really critical is connecting the mission. So having a clear mission is a critical part of OKRs. So if your team don't know where they're heading, they will very quickly head nowhere. And that is something that I've experienced. We had like a whole year of just turmoil as well. So your mission should align with your overarching vision and reflect a singular, time-bound, but ambitious goal. And timing is going to be something that we're going to be talking about in a second as well, because that could be different for every business. So connecting the OKRs, the objectives and key results, to the mission means that you're going to get that stakeholder support and alignment from both the leaders and from the employees and anyone else that's a stakeholder too. I was talking to somebody the other day about trustees and how important it was to get trustees on board as well. So by creating the parallels between the why of the mission and the OKRs, you can set the stage for alignment across all of the levels. So that means that the stakeholders will be aligned to the organisational goals. And that's important because you'll be creating a sense of purpose and direction. And I find that really critical when it comes to sort of cultural transformation pieces. Sometimes I get asked to help with changing a culture of a business. And I often start with something like their objectives and goals and the way in which they work, because that will change a culture far more quickly than, doing endless, workshops on, values or value setting, which is often where people seem to start. So connecting that mission can also help to build trust and cooperation between the different teams and departments. So solidifying that why, making sure that why is the underlying reason for the OKRs, and then connecting it as we go down will help the organisation achieve its mission and help for the employees to become motivated. So there are some key questions there. So what is it you're trying to achieve? Why do you want to achieve this? And be really honest about that. If the ambition is to, make sure that you're highly profitable so that you can sell, so that you can satisfy your investors, be honest about that. People are grown-ups, people are adults, and they know that the businesses are there to, make money quite a lot of the time, or to provide a particular service if they're in a charity or what have you. So just be really clear about what your why is, and also be clear about when you want to achieve this by. So if you think back to my previous slides, they wanted to be the #1 widget maker. And that was it. They didn't say within 10 years, they didn't say within 5 years, they didn't say by tomorrow. So, you know, some people had a sense of urgency where others didn't. So have a think about when. So let's get into you know, the actual the pragmatic approach to OKRs. And again, I've designed this webinar so that you can have this to hand. So I appreciate it might look a little bit busy, but I wanted you to be able to take this away with you. So OKR, so you have your objective, which should be qualitative and aspirational, and that's something that your team or business should aim to achieve. Then you have your key results, which are your quantitative and measurable, so they indicate if you have achieved your objective. So some top tips here are that your teams will quickly learn the value of focus if OKRs aren't overcomplicated. And also more than 5 key results are quite hard to maintain, but less than 3 probably won't define success clearly enough. So I like to have 3. I think that tends to be the right number of key results. So let's have a think about this. So if we have an objective, a key objective of becoming the widget maker of choice, if anybody can tell me what a widget is, by the way, that would be great. If they want to become the widget maker of choice for all households in the UK by Q3 2025, some of the key results that they might be measuring themselves on is perhaps units sold to be in excess of 20 million, increasing the types of widgets sold from 1 to 3. Or profit to be in excess of 1.9 million as measured by EBITDA, for example. So that might be where they might start. So if we then, so that's our sort of our key objective, our key results, and then we think about the structure of OKR. So I'm just going to zoom out just quickly, just to sort of share with you the structure so that you can see how it kind of filters down. So you've got your objective and your key results at the top. Then you have your next set of objectives that will be leading up to that key mission and that primary objective. And then you have underneath, that's where you have your teamwork and your teams being able to contribute to their own objectives and key results. So at the top, you have your big, hairy, audacious goal, your primary objective, your mission, whatever you want to call it, whatever business language works for you. And then you have underneath, you have your main objectives that will lead towards achieving those key results. And then underneath that, that's where you have your team contributions feeding up. And we're going to be looking at that a little bit more closely. But first of all, if you think about that primary objective, it usually works as being a top-down approach. Now, that doesn't mean that the leaders, the senior leaders of the team or the board or whoever it is, shouldn't be taking into account you know, the information, the experience from the teams, but usually, you know, they will have criteria that they have to hit for their investors or for their stakeholders or what have you. So it is okay for that part of it to be that top-down approach, but it does need to be realistic. And usually there'll be more than one draft of the OKRs for the time period that's right for your business, for the year or for the 3 years or what have you. So while I've said that, actually, it's really good to understand your business's kind of time cycles, because you might have a mission that might be over 3 years. It might be something that you want to achieve within 3 years or 5 years, or you might want to change your mission every year. It really depends on your business. So keep that in the back of your mind, that your overall, your primary objective or your big, hairy, audacious goal should be longer in length than the other objectives that are underneath it. You'll also probably notice on this slide that I've got something called a designated responsible person. So that is a theme that runs throughout OKRs. So having somebody that is the designated responsible person for that particular objective is a really healthy way of making sure that you've got that accountability for each area of the business. So that ownership can vary depending on the business and the seniorities, but generally the OKRs are owned by individuals. Sometimes it's owned by teams, but it depends how mature that team is. you can also set sort of individual OKRs as well, which we're not going to be talking about now. But my preference with working with a lot of businesses is that team objectives tend to be the ones that really work. So have a think about that and think about how that fits with your business culture as well. So the business, the senior leadership, when they're setting their primary objective, they do need to have a great understanding of the business's current play and their current status. So they should be giving, some considerations to where the business is at the moment to achieve the goals. So I'd love to have another chatterful now to have a think about what considerations need to be given to achieve the goal. So think about some of the words that I've got on the screen. So, innovation. Does there need to be a different approach to innovation in order to, increase the types of widgets sold? Skills. Do we have the right skills, for example? The current landscape, the market, the financial situation. What kind of considerations do you think needs to be given to achieve these kinds of goals? So we're going to go into another chatterful now. So again, type your answers in the chat, but don't press send until I say go. So what needs to be taken into consideration to achieve goals like this? When you think about things like innovation, skills, the current landscape, the financial situation of the business or the economy, what kind of considerations would you think? And this can be from any perspective, from HR perspective, from a finance perspective, from an operational perspective. What kind of thoughts or considerations would need to be given to achieve those goals? So if you were presented with those goals, what kind of thoughts would you have? So we'll just give another minute. Just noticed that my drink matches my outfit. That was unplanned, but I'm happy with that. Okay, so hopefully you've typed your answer in the chat. So I'm going to say go. Let's have a look at what kind of considerations. Yes, Rhiannon. Do we have the right skills in the right place to produce this volume? Excellent. Do we have sufficient recruitment pipelines for hiring with the right skills? Rhiannon, I feel like you've done this before. Charissa has got, apologies if I've said that wrong, market conditions and the products of the competition, technology and skills of the workforce in production and marketing. Absolutely. And then Danny, it depends on what the specific goal is. We cannot align behaviours, approaches, decisions and processes if we are unsure of what it is we're aligning them towards. Ideally, though I'm biased, I would be focusing on nurturing the culture to allow for group members to be able to identify how they can best contribute towards that goal OKR. Yeah, absolutely, Danny. We're going to be moving on to that in a moment. So we've got from Mutinta, hopefully I've said that right. From a HR perspective, there would need to be employee right skills and right people in each department, I think, is what you've said there, which is great. So yeah, absolutely. I've put a few down just so that you've got them to refer to. But yeah, absolutely. What widgets does the world need? What does the world want and what do they need? Have we got the skills for these new widget designs? What's our competitor doing? Are widgets the right solution for the future? That if widgets are going to be they're not going to be part of the future, then why is it that we want to do them right now? Have we got investment for acquisitions? Are we retaining and attracting the right talent to achieve these goals? Have we got the funds for investment in the skills and talent? Have we got the right resources, the technology, the machinery, all of those things? So absolutely, I think we're all sort of singing from the same hymn sheet there, which is absolutely fantastic. So we've kind of covered the top-down approach and what the leadership needs to think about when they're coming up with this big, hairy, audacious goal or this primary objective. So they need to be thinking about that, and they might want to go out to the workforce, do some analysis and work out, what is going to be reasonable to expect and over which time scale. So then we start to look at we've got that top-down approach, but then we start to look at, the benefits of having a bottom-up input too. So each business is different. And when we're talking about timescales, your primary objective might be, over 3 years. And then your 3 secondary objectives might be, for the next 3 months, or it might be for 6 months, or it might be for a year. I've worked with businesses that, have their own kind of cadence and rhythm. So it might be disruptive to change that by setting too short an objective, or, conversely, too long an objective. So really give some thought about that kind of cadence and rhythm, and what would be the right length of time for objectives to be set. So really think about that. So if you've given that thought to what needs to happen for that primary objective to be achieved, once that's been set, and remember I was saying, sometimes you have to go through a couple of drafts, this can then be put out to the teams themselves, because they're in the best place to be able to determine what they need to do to make it happen. So they're the ones that are in the best place to know the activities and resources that will be needed to achieve what is needed in that time period that's been set. And that is a great way of breaking down silos. So if you look at the bottom, you can see that for the first objective, you've got the people team, marketing, and operations. So they are all contributing to that one objective, which is to become an employer of choice by Q3 2023. And then in the next set, you've got finance, people team, and operations that will all be contributing to the second objective, which is to make 2 new acquisitions by the end of Q1 2024. So this particular business has decided they're going to grow through acquisitions. That's how they're going to increase the amount of units that are being sold, and that's how they're going to get those profits up. They're going to acquire profitable businesses. And then the third one, you can see that finance, operations, and sales are working together in order to expand technology and machinery in line with sales and revenue goals. So you can see how the leadership are setting what needs to happen, and then the teams themselves are the ones that are making the commitments to what needs to happen in order to achieve that. And only then can things like budgets or specific timescales be set, because it might be that the budget needs to be adjusted, or it might be that the timescale needs to be adjusted. So you can see that there is that top-down approach at the beginning, and then a bottom-up approach for that that realistic approach of what's going to be needed. So the kind of information that teams need to know, I've put some suggestions down there, rather than sort of filling in all of those small boxes, is things like, I'll pick out a few. So things like they can contribute with data, so they can do focus groups, surveys, interviews to find out how that, what's the best strategy of becoming that employer of choice, for example. They can create a roadmap. I think somebody said a roadmap earlier, for priorities and return on investments. Then when it comes to the second objective of making 2 new acquisitions, things like, we're going to need a due diligence team, we're going to need some cross-functional implementation, the right skills in the right place, which I think somebody said earlier as well. And then for the third one, things like, our website and marketing channels. If we've got these widgets to sell, how are we going to sell them? What kind of campaigns do the sales team need to work with? How can HR and marketing work together to have, a talent attraction strategy? All of those kind of things. But the thing that's really important is that there's that cross-functional approach, all leading towards transparent objectives, and you're going to be succeeding and achieving those together. So you've still got your designated responsible person, but they are responsible for that objective, and they're working with cross-functional teams. Oh, there seems to be a formatting issue that's gone there. I'm so sorry about that. It was fine earlier. I don't know what's happened there. So if you want to guess in the chat as to what those words say, then go ahead. But it's really important to have that cycle of OKRs. So you've set your OKRs, you've understood them, you've got that strategy in place for your business, but it doesn't mean that it has to be absolutely set in stone. The great thing about OKRs is because you've got that time period, which is why I kind of recommend a 3-month to 6-month objectives, is that you can have that cycle. You've agreed the OKR, you've trained and you've empowered your teams to contribute to it. You're tracking the progress, and then the most important thing is you're reflecting at the end of each of those cycles. What worked? Were we over ambitious? Were we under ambitious? Did we assign enough budget? Was there a particular team that struggled more than others? How can we support that? How did the cross-functional aspect work? Rhiannon, spot on. Agree, train, track, reflect. Well done. It's really important to do that before you then go again in the next cycle. So you don't change your primary objective, or perhaps even your secondary objectives, but the objectives that the teams are doing should be changing or expanding, after each cycle period. And then you learn over perhaps a year. You'll get used to that kind of cadence and cycle. So I will fix that badly formatted cycle ready for when I send it over for you all. So thank you for bearing with me on that one. Oh, I'm mortified. So think about, so here's some tips for you. So think about starting with that clear strategy. Think about what the organization's overall goals are. Think then about the specific objectives that you want the business to achieve, and then educate and empower your team. Maybe start small, start with that pilot group, minimal viable product and all of that. But then when you do expand, make sure everyone in your organization understands what OKRs are and how they work. But more importantly, why you've moved to that model. What was in your way before? If there was chaos and confusion before, explain how OKRs will help with that. And I've put some pointers on there as well. So think about the kind of smart approach to objectives. I'm sure you all know a lot of these, but are they in line with the company mission? Are there too many or too few? Are they actionable, realistic? What's the kind of impact? And then probably the most important, what's going to make people care about this? Why will they want to be part of this? Is it going to be exciting? Is the CEO on board? Are we creating some excitement around that? The first time you do it, you might make some mistakes. There's often a tendency to be over ambitious, and that's fine for your big mission, but for your smaller objectives, make sure that people are working at that 80% capacity, so that there is that wiggle room if there needs to be some change. And then again, with the key results, are they in line with the objective? Is it going to be a fair measure of whether you've achieved that objective or not? And do make sure that they're realistic, and be really clear about who's accountable for each key result, and make sure that those responsible people are supported well. So hopefully that's given you a sort of a starter of OKRs and how they can be helpful for your business. So I wanted to kind of hand over to yourselves if you wanted to ask some questions, if you just wanted to tell me off for not checking the presentation and the formatting before I launched, that's also absolutely fine. So pop yourself off mute, come on camera so I can see you, and ask any questions that you want to ask, or tell me off if you want to. While I take a swig of my pink drink.
Yes, Rhiannon has raised her hand.
Oh, lovely. Hi, Rhiannon. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. This has been really interesting because it's really topical for me at the moment. And I'm wondering, I'm being tasked to create a shared resource model. So a bunch of people that come together and work on teams, work on a project as a team, and then disbanded and reformed somewhere. And I'm just wondering how how could OKRs help with that? Bringing people together quickly on that team, giving them a focus. Yeah, that was my question. Have you had experience of that? Could that help?
Yeah, definitely. I did that approach with a business that I work with that were on a really, really ambitious and fast acquisition journey. So they've made the decision that they were going to become the largest in terms of practices. So opticians. So the largest in terms of practices in the UK. And they were doing that. They didn't have time to wait for it to grow organically. They wanted to acquire independent businesses. So they did that. So there were two ways that they cut that in terms of projects. The first one was that each acquisition was a project, but also there were several projects that were going on in the business in order for the business to expand to be able to support that growth. So each acquisition, and sometimes those acquisitions overlapped, because as you can probably imagine, acquisitions don't just patiently wait. You have to get them when they're ready to be bought. So we had project teams for each acquisition, and we had somebody from finance on each one, somebody from HR or the people team, somebody from marketing, and then the implementation lead as well. And then people kind of dotted in and out depending on what the due diligence was showing. So that kind of agile approach which you're talking about was brilliant for that, because it had to be done at speed. So there had to be we had to do, and I think Danny was talking about sort of behaviors and culture. It was really important to have those behaviors and culture, because to move at that kind of speed, you had to have radical candor. You couldn't not be really clear about what it was you were doing and what wasn't working and what was working. So we did a lot of work up front about psychological safety, what it meant to be candid, what it meant to work transparently, so that you weren't wasting time on not saying things when actually it could solve a problem. So that's one way that we did it. And I would recommend that if you are bringing people together, that making that investment in making sure that culture is true of all teams. So when somebody's moving from team to team, they know the kind of behaviors that they should expect of themselves and of other people all the time. So you're not going to a different team and suddenly there's a different style, or because it would be awful, wouldn't it, if you're used to being really transparent and candid, and then you go to a team that's not like that. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and probably it would have an impact on your mental health. So I would definitely recommend that, thinking about those kind of behaviors for people that are swapping and changing quite regularly. That would be the biggest tip. Does that answer your question? I feel like I waffled a bit.
No, that's really helpful, because with your waffle, you've given me, oh yeah, that's a thought. I hadn't thought of that. But I was wondering, because you were talking about OKRs being kind of short term, 4 to 6 months. I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably what these projects are going to last.
Yeah.
And I could see, there's that guiding light of the objective and the key result areas. Yeah, I could see that will work really well. But also then it reminded me that there's foundational activity, not just the OKRs. But yeah, that's really helpful.
So it depends on the business, but where I've seen it work best is that the primary objective is usually sort of 3 years. Then the secondary objectives usually are for the year. And then the ones where the teams are contributing, having that bottom-up approach, are usually 3 months. Yeah. So what happens every 3 months is you have that rhythm of looking at those objectives and saying, okay, did we hit them? Do we need to go again? Do we need to change it? Or have we achieved them? And then we swap that objective for a new objective, because we've made that acquisition or we've achieved that project. We now need to move on to the next one. It's a great way for cultures as well, for teams to be a lot more autonomous. It brings the decision making down the chain. And because you're bringing that decision making down, you're really encouraging that culture of autonomy and accountability much quicker than I've seen from just rolling out workshops on how to be accountable and how to be autonomous. You do need to do the training, but having that way of working is much quicker than sort of just training over and over again.
That's also a problem with these teams as well. every decision is escalated to the top. So that's really helpful for you to say that, actually. Yeah.
And
I
we
think
can have, if we're linked in together, Rhiannon, we can have another chat offline if you want.
I'd love to. Thank you. I don't want to take over everything, but thank you. Yeah, this was good.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions or any thoughts that they want to share? You can be brave or not, that's okay. Any more hands up? No? So I will hand over to my colleague who will close up the webinar. Oh, thank you for your comment. It's a lovely session. It's really relevant to my current work environment and ensuring the objectives and timelines are clear. Thank you so much. That was really kind of you to say that. Thank you. I did have one more slide actually. We just had, but that's okay. I was just going to ask people to link in with me. Oh, thank you. Just to link in with me, if you're not already. I've got a little QR code. So link in with me, Rhiannon, Teresa, all of the people that are there. Just hold your phone up on that QR code, and we'll be able to link in and be connected. And if you've got any questions, if you want to have a 30-minute chat with me to talk about some of the pain points that you're experiencing, then please do so. You can send me a DM over LinkedIn, and that would be great. So hopefully I've given you enough time to put your phone up against that QR code. I wish I looked like that photo now. Wouldn't that be nice? But sadly not. So I will hand over now. So sorry about that.
You still do look in that photo.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was a wonderful session. And thank you for shedding light on OKRs and their role in fostering clarity and success in today's dynamic business environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think there's going to be some feedback. You're going to offer to let people give some feedback as well?
Yes. So you will all receive a feedback form in the chat box. Would request you all to give your feedback.
Lovely.
So what we have next is we have an upcoming learning lab scheduled on November 7th. And this session aims to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to leverage AI-generated video in making your training programs more effective and engaging. The link to register for this event, you can just scan the QR code that is there on top and you will be able to register for this event.
Lovely.
So
Kevin's
the
great.
next thing, Kevin Olster.
He's great.
Yes, he's great. We have the next exciting event for the UK in the month of December. So stay tuned for more details. You would not want to miss it. Thank you all once again for joining us today. Stay tuned for more. We will be coming up with many more sessions for you to learn and grow with us. We will also share this recording with everybody who has registered, and we will upload the session on our YouTube channel. Thank you all once again. Have a wonderful day ahead.
And we'll send slides out as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.